topic for discussion for today is the blind spots we carry into tech investment decisions. These days, there is no organization which is not discussing about implementation of tech projects. As someone who deal with corporates when it comes for hiring from MBA schools, I keep on hearing from all the recruiters, almost all the recruiters, that we wanted students who have a better understanding of tech and along with the management knowledge what they have. Primarily because most of the firms are either into implementation of tech projects, or the consulting firms who come and hire, they also wanted people to be aware of tech and technology implementation and so on. So given this growing demand for implementation of technology in various industries, there is also a kind of argument in the other side that are these companies implementing technology project even without understanding the need for it, or is it that some of the firms go into technology projects when their workforce is not ready for it, or their internal resources is not aligned to the requirements? So we will discuss around this area. So to start with, maybe you can give us your views on something like is it that corporates are overestimating their capacity to absorb and adapt new technology? Right? We call it as do the corporates resource have the required digital literacy to handle this technology what is getting implemented, and how the corporate should manage this through?
I think there are a couple of things we have to look at before you go into the right or the wrong answer of it. One is the pace of technology and the way it is changing. It is stupendous right now. Like every 3 months you hear of a new version of AI now. So how do you keep pace with it? First of all, you haven't even done a POC on the first one, and then the second and the third one has come in. So obviously it's a dog chasing its tail, because you can't have a workforce ready which can just move on to a newer technology in 3 months. And especially from the industry I come from, which is banking industry, we live with a lot of tech debt. Like things which were done ages ago, there have been band-aids placed on it to make it function and make it new age. Now, who's got the ability to rip off those band-aids and bring in new? It's a big risk for us. So I think before we discuss anything, it's from a banking industry, it is very, very, very imperative that we understand the risk of introducing new technology. So we are actually on the other end of the spectrum. We are not overestimating. We rather go slow and look at all the risks, then go in for a change, because the pace of change is stupendous, as I said. So that's my view. I don't think, and it can be industry agnostic, and other industries could have a different use case altogether. But that's how I see it. ROI is not just about I invest so much and this is the return I get. ROI is also should also consider what is the risk assessment of this, and does the new technology open us to a risk which we haven't seen or not aware of. That goes wrong. A lot of it could go wrong for us. So you don't want to be in that situation where you haven't assessed the risk and gone ahead and done it and then landed in some murky waters.
Okay. So if you look at, the question that was the organization ready to kind of adopt technology? I think that's what you were asking. So kind of, should you adopt technology even if the organization is ready or not? And to add to the point that he made, in today's times, technology is actually running at a pace that we can't keep pace as humans, right? So it's phenomenal, and organizations have to build this agility to be able to run with technology space. There's no choice today, right? I mean, otherwise you are going to be extinct at one point of time. So it is very important that the skill sets of the people are up to the mark. So if you have to kind of run as an organization, you have to adopt technology. You don't have a choice. But at the same time, you have to get your people upskilled to meet that technology. So if people are not embracing technology, then those people will have to become redundant. And that's what we are seeing across the board, right? So whether it is a technology company or otherwise, people are getting laid off. Now, why are they getting laid off is just part of upskilling to the relevant technology that is today. So there's never a time where you can say that is the organization, the people ready to embrace technology. You have to get to it. There's no choice. And that's my opinion.
Look at the structural way how a corporate operates, the decision framework from top to bottom. the mandate it organizes and is organized through the layers, and then the implications of whether it's a technology decision or a business investment. So if you think of it, a CEO goes to Davos today. 72% of the agenda is dominated by AI. A CEO feels left out if he or she doesn't do anything coming back home. So the mandate is we should do AI. Okay, great. What is the structural framework around it? Then that passes on to the CEO minus one. A CFO has to structurally align investments. A business officer has to structurally align initiatives, and then so on and so forth. So the realization of these benefits, in my opinion, is well structured if you have all the layers thinking through. The CEO joins Davos, business officer is not there. So what the discussion and the mandate doesn't flow right to a technology manager, for example. How do you do POC? What is the stack you go for? What is your enterprise outlook about an architecture? Where is your maximization of benefits in that stack? And then comes the talent and the upskilling around it, which was raised in the room. So there is a huge disconnect, in my opinion, from mandate to execution. And that is something we need to work on better in corporate work. That's my opinion.
In a lot of organizations which are distributed, there is a lot of bottoms up technology push that happens as well, right? A lot of IT teams want to be extremely competitive and want their own people and themselves to be really on the cutting edge of technology. So they start experimenting. Now, the question that's always challenging is who leads this change? Is it business who's asked for something to be changed in the business model? Or are the technology teams trying to just up the game by, just saying I need to work on AI or I need to bring in an emerging technology because I would like to be the first mover. I would like to get those kudo points. Now, what we don't realize to a large extent is there are many players, especially in the banking financial space, beyond just the business and technology teams, right? There's a regulatory aspect. There are the customers. And a technology change, if it's for your internal systems, is a very different deal versus a technological investment that's going to change the customer experience. So upskilling and all of that could be great considerations if it's an inward looking platform. But what if you're really trying to get this for customer facing? So you've got to start looking at it end to end, which is essentially the internal developer to the end user. And I don't think organizations, especially large ones, are able to think that through. So overestimation happens at every point of time. And in larger organizations, by the time you get down to implementation, you've spent such a long time on it that stakeholders have changed, sponsors are different, the business case no longer exists. But because you've taken that decision, you need to follow through. So, that overestimation happens in one instance, but then organizations have felt are not agile enough to make quick pivots to say, okay, now this doesn't make sense. So what do we do?
Just to paraphrase your original question, so you have made a business investment decision. So is the organization ready to readiness to build it, implement it? So I think the way I do it is a usual philosophy that we followed with Fargo is don't do an AI just for the sake of AI, right? So what should decide your choice of technology is your business problem. So you have defined a business problem. If AI is going to solve it, do it. If a simple Excel will solve it, go for an Excel, right? So I think, so the tail should never wag the dog. I think it's the other way around. So that is the first part of it. The second part of it is, once you have a problem, the choice of technology, as I said, a lot of time that is where the execution part starts failing. Like, so I can give you a couple of examples. So this was like in one of the banks I worked 15 years ago. The problem statement was very simple. So the time it takes to open a savings account took 28 days. I mean, you can't imagine that happening now, right? It took 28 days. And we had to bring it down to 4 days. That was the problem state. And then it was a good problem to solve, but bad technology choices were made. The team chose a technology where that skill set never existed. The market didn't have that skill set. So a lot of time was spent in getting that skill set. Then nobody questioned, like, is that skill set the only needed thing to solve that problem? So the expected outcome was, the budget was overspent, the target was not met. You wanted to meet in 6 months, even after 18 months, you are nowhere.
Just the opposite happened in my another bank. We got rid of couple of payment vendors. We built everything in-house, right? The choice of technology was extremely simple. We had adequate, abundant skill set. So we delivered it on time pretty good. So that goes back to your question of keep it simple and your business decision should drive the technology, not the other way.
We do the modification required in technology just to satisfy a regulator, right? That's what he was telling. Okay.
I don't know if it's an Indian, because I have worked abroad for 17
This is
years.
Indian.
And
My example is more investment bank, global investment.
My point is what we can learn from like foreign agencies. If you think of it, FCA in UK is co-creating it with the banks. So if you have to validate transactions, I will give you a platform, you create the reconciliation structures. So a concept like that is also not very onerous on both sides because you have to reduce the cost of regulation.
No, I agree.
Else it cannot move and make change. So that's something.
Give you an example on that. Like we are, as a consulting firm, we are branching out into AI. We have foundational models, but there is no governance structure around how to implement AI in the market. So we are actually working with AFME. We're part of the signatory EU AI signatory pact. So, like to your example of FCA, we are working with AFME to come out with regulations which will govern the market on AI, so that the implementation of the technology is done in a way which is ethical, and is not just done because it's there to be done. So your point is great, because the regulator has to work with the client. Banks are the client, right?
Correct.
To create the impact.
And banks are funding it, which is another dichotomy of the change of regulation is being funded by the person who is being regulated. And that's a big decision intelligence there, is where to invest, how much to comply. Some banks I work with, they're better off paying the fines than in regulating. It is because the cost of technology is very high. Yeah. And this, to your point is, where does that rationalized boundary of decision framework exist to say, okay, beyond that, actually non-compliance is favorable? Because my shareholders are questioning
territory of getting into the regulatory. I'll stay away from that.
There are levels of regulatory fines you can play around. Unless it comes to cease and desist, they will continue doing it.
But I think the question which was in the room first, how do we rationalize this investment? To what extent? These are all structural problems we need to solve together.